Welcome to Small Biz, Big Wins, where every episode is a new journey into the heart of entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Summer Poquette, here to navigate the thrilling world of small business with you. Each week, we dive into the inspiring stories and joyful triumphs of real business owners. Get ready to be empowered with actionable advice and, most importantly, celebrate the spirit of small business. Let's dive into how every small victory shapes your big success. This is Small Biz, Big Wins. Let's make it happen. Nowadays, everyone thinks they're a photographer. And let's be honest, iPhones have made it much easier to take great photos. However, very few people are actual pro photographers, making a business out of their craft. And it's definitely a craft. I learned over the years, there's a lot more than just having a good camera. There's lighting, creativity, having a vision, paying attention to details, being flexible, and being very, very patient. And then there's the technical skills involved for editing, software, the list goes on. So while I can take a great photo with my iPhone and I'm pretty good at using my point and shoot, I never claim to be a photographer. I leave that up to the pros like my friend Stephanie Baker. Stephanie is here with us today as an award-winning luxury wedding photographer with over 16 years of experience photographing over 300 plus weddings. That is a lot of weddings and brides and grooms, and over 2,000 portrait sessions. She knows a thing or two about running a photography business. She's also a mom of the cutest little toddler I've ever met and a photographer mentor, helping other photographers build their own business using her business savvy. I'm so excited to have her on Small Biz, Big Wins today. If you are a creative building your business from the ground up, and a parent juggling business ownership, this is the episode for you. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Hi.
Hey, I'm so excited to have you.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. And for you taking time out of your day, I know you're super busy.
Oh, I'm happy to.
Good.
It's kind of like my slow season right now, so I'm working on building a chicken coop.
Oh my gosh. It's funny. I was just watching some TikToks and Instagram last night and chicken coops keep coming up. So I don't know what it
Oh,
is.
yeah.
Yeah. Now that
Well,
I've said
like,
that, I'm gonna see more of
yeah, you're
them.
gonna get more. It's like chicken coop season, I feel like, because this is when all the chickies are being born. So,
Yeah. Oh
yeah.
my
So
gosh. Well, your
I'm
little one
getting
is gonna absolutely love these chickens.
Oh, yeah, she's so excited. We're getting a Polish chicken, which is, like, the kind with, like, the crazy feathers on top of their head,
Oh my
and she keeps
gosh.
asking me to show her a photo of that one. She's like, "That's my favorite one."
Oh my gosh, that's adorable. Okay, well,
Yeah.
everyone who wants to follow along with Stephanie's chicken coop journey, definitely. I'm gonna have all of her social media links in the show notes, so you'll have to follow along. So, Stephanie, tell the listeners today a little bit about yourself. When did you start really learning about your craft?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't feel like I have that traditional, like, she always had a camera in her hands kinda story. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
sorta just fell into it. I was in college. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I started out in childhood education, and that's actually really hard.
Yeah.
It's not just playing with kids all day, and not that I'm afraid of doing something hard, but I kinda learned that maybe being a teacher wasn't gonna be for me. And, I was just trying to graduate, and so my what advisor, is that what you have in college? It's been a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Was like, "Try photography." So I took some photography classes and I liked it, so I got a degree in graphic design and photography, and never actually intended to be a photographer, like, in the sense of, like, being hired by people to do family portraits. I
Oh
thought I'd be,
wow.
like, a really artistic, like, taking pictures of, like, rusted pipes and, like, I don't know, just, like, art.
Yeah.
I pictured myself being, like, the kind of photographer that had, like, photos on gallery walls and in galleries and stuff like that, not, doing what I do. But then I moved home and the recession hit, the 2008 recession hit, and it was like, I guess I could try this, and it just kind of, like, took off running.
Wow. So really it was about 2008 that you kind of started building your business.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow. And that it seems to me like it's definitely was before that wave of everybody putting up a page saying they're a photographer.
It was
Do you know
definitely
what
the
I mean?
beginning.
Like
Yeah, I do. I absolutely do. Like, when I was in college was kind of, I think, the transition from film to digital, and digital is what kind of launched that whole thing where everyone became a photographer because it became
yeah.
so easy to just start taking pictures. But it's really not that simple, and that's why I
No,
think you
it's
see a lot of
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
not simple. Yeah, like, I mean, I don't know how you do it. There's
yeah,
lots
I
to
mean, I
it.
think that's why you see a lot of turnover in the photography industry is it's so much more than just taking good photos,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know?
No, and like I
And
said, like, it really is a craft, and in paying attention to the lighting, the detail, I mean, just like, is their necklace, correct? Is their collar folded down? Like, that can ruin you can send them the pictures and you have all these mistakes in it because you weren't paying attention to the detail.
yeah, which
Yeah.
is hard for me because I'm not a detail person. So so I have to
But
stop once I have to stop once I
yeah.
get everybody in or like organized in the grouping and I'm like, okay, and then I just do a scan of every body. And then a lot of it is, if you don't catch it before, then you have to edit your way out of it. And that's so time consuming. When a
Yeah,
client is
no.
just like, oh, you could just Photoshop that. I'm like, I can, but
In
do
an
do
hour.
I want to? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have
Right.
a second shooter to, like, help you in some situations, like big families where there's all of these, women to pay attention to and men to make sure their hair is perfect, and do you have someone helping you as an extra set of eyes?
It just depends. At weddings, I do have a second shooter, but often they're off doing like photos of the guests at the reception or
Mm,
doing other things. I've
gotcha.
gotten pretty good at least for photography, being able to pick out like hair ties on women's wrists and yeah, whatever the imperfections might be, hair out of place. I've gotten pretty good at picking that out before we start shooting. But I also sometimes I'll have like if it's a senior portrait session, I'll have the mom with me, and then she is in charge of all of that. And I say, okay, I'm going to look, but you also please don't hesitate to shout out if you see a hair out of place or just something that doesn't seem right to you.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful because I mean, we've been
Mhm.
in situations with our clients where afterwards we're like, "Oh my gosh, we didn't spot that," and
Mhm.
it's a nightmare to kind of fix that. So we've also gotten pretty good at that, but I can only imagine the weddings and the family pictures and the senior photo shoots, you really
Mhm.
have to be on your game. Who you started in 2008, you didn't think you were gonna go into photography. You definitely thought you were gonna be more in like the art galleries and not a person that's not photographing people.
Mhm.
How did you learn so much about your craft? Is it you just kind of taught yourself? Is there somebody that you learned from?
Yes, I taught myself. I am completely self-taught. I
I love that
I
though. I
had
love that though.
well, I hesitated there for a second because I think part of the reason I didn't wanna be, like, a people's photographer back then was because it sort of photography has changed so much in the last 15 years.
Mm,
Back then, it was, like, frumpy, and it was just sort of right when things were changing into more of a personality-filled, authentic, like, these raw moments. Back then, it was like an old man with, like, a vest, like, one of those green vests with, like, film
yep.
pockets, and it was really stagnant and stiff, and that was why I didn't want to be a photographer because I didn't like the kind of photography that was what was happening back then.
Yeah.
But since it changed, now I'm like proud to be a photographer the way I am with weddings and portraits. I think it's so fun. And then yeah, I'm self-taught in the sense that I graduated from college still shooting on automatic. I had no
Oh
idea
wow.
what I was doing, and I just sort of figured it out as I went. Like, truly just trial and error, like, that worked, that didn't work. Oops, like, even when it comes to, like, billing mistakes with clients, like, I've made so many mistakes along the way, and you learn from them. That's the only way to get through it, those big mistakes when you're losing money or having to refund someone or whatever it might be, is you learn from it, and it's a really valuable
Absolutely.
lesson.
Well, and it's great. I mean, you were learning as photography was changing, which was really a great time, like kind of, the perfect storm, so to speak. I mean, I look back at
Mhm.
my wedding pictures 22 years ago and they're just terrible. Like they're awful. I mean, I'm sure my daughter who's 17 is like, "Oh my god, mom," because she would never want my wedding pictures because that's
Mhm,
the style back then. I mean,
mhm,
it was very I don't know, there wasn't there like you said, there wasn't personalities. There's not pictures of us laughing or in the moment or,
mhm,
the personality doesn't shine through. It's like stop, pose, smile. It's so fake. And
mhm. I
yeah,
totally
so
I know. Well, and
yeah,
then going
now it
back to
like you see the pictures and they're just like you can you literally, like you said, you see the personality of the bride and the groom or the senior or the families interacting versus just being like, okay, pose.
Right. Well, I think going back to what I said earlier about the shift from digital to or from film to digital, I think that has opened up that authenticity and that the availability of being able to capture more because when you're shooting on a roll of like 36 exposure film, you really do kind of have to be particular about what you're shooting.
Yeah,
So back
that's true.
then, if your photographer was on film, they were probably, "Okay, we're gonna capture the couple cutting their cake."
Yep.
And there's probably just a couple of those, and instead of, like, when I'm shooting the couple cutting their cake, I'm just firing away, getting
Yeah.
laughter, getting them looking at each other, getting them laughing with their guests. I'm not trying to pick, like, what photos I want to take.
Yeah.
It's just
That's
really
true.
opened things up. It's really opened
Yeah.
things up.
That's a really, really good point. You mentioned, making business mistakes. And it's funny, I just recorded a podcast today about the mistakes that I've made in business that'll air next week. So this is March 8th. So it'll air next week. And it's so funny you talk about the mistakes because we make so many in small business
Mhm.
and there isn't a map telling us, okay, go this way, do that. I mean, you kind of just have got to learn as you go. There's not a guidebook
Mhm.
saying this is, this is what you do. Instead, you learn from other business owners like yourself and me teaching, or listening to the stories and saying, okay, don't do what Stephanie did, don't do what Summer did, and learn from that.
Yeah,
So what would you say are like some
absolutely.
of your big oopsies in business?
Um, I think having boundaries is a really tricky one to
Mm,
find the sweet spot between having the boundaries that you need for yourself and having boundaries with your clients. So, like, I would say one, an example. I actually am offering a beginner the basics of photography business course. And one of the examples I give in there is like the boundaries with getting your retainer fee. And I had a
mm.
client hire me to shoot their wedding. This was probably 12 years ago. So I was very new in my career. And they had me hold the date. And I was like, yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll hold the date. And I think I held the date for like 3 or 6 months. I'm
Oh,
not
wow.
kidding. And then they finally paid me. They signed the contract, but they didn't send in their retainer fee. And I was like, whatever, they'll send it. And then they finally sent it in. And then less than a week later, they canceled the wedding and wanted their money back. And I was
After you
like,
saved that date.
this is a real gray area because yeah, you just gave me the money, but I've been holding this date for 4 or 5, 6 months. I can't remember because it was so long ago.
Yeah.
And I turned a lot of people away, and now I can't rebook this date.
Ugh,
So that was like a huge lesson where I had to give them their money back because they were so upset with me. I took a couple days to think about how I wanted to handle it before I responded to her email. And in that
yeah.
time, she sent me this scathing email about how dare I do business like this. And I was like, I haven't even told you no yet. I haven't even responded yet. It was crazy. So in hindsight, back then I was just devastated, right? That I like
Sure.
lost this client and that I like had to send their money back. But now I'm like, thank God I avoided that client too. Those red
Yeah.
flags that you get right up front are so valuable.
Absolutely, and you've learned from that. Now you're like, "Okay, I need to get the
Mhm.
down payment now. I have a refund
Yes.
policy, there's a contract," and you've
Yes.
learned yeah, you wanna trust people and you wanna think the best, but things happen and, like you said, you couldn't rebook that date, so that's money
Mm-mm.
lost.
It's like double, right? It's like I lost
Yeah.
their 50% retainer fee, and then I also lost their final payment.
That sucks. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's huge. So now you have those processes and procedures and contracts, kind of in place. How has setting your boundaries changed since having a little one?
Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, I mean, time is so much more valuable. When you're just a single person, like running your business is your baby. And I put
Mhm.
all my time into my business to the point of burnout, though. Like, I was kind of unhappy in my career for a long time. And then having Birdie was like, obviously, I just wanted to be with her as much as I could. So I started booking, like, previously to having her, I would do a shoot every single night and then a wedding on Saturday. So I was working every day. And then once
Wow.
I had her, I realized that I couldn't be away from her every night.
Yeah.
So I changed my sessions from however long they were to timed sessions so people could choose between 30, 60, and 90-minute sessions. And then I'd book two 3, 4 shoots an evening, and I just work 2 evenings.
So you really had to adjust your schedule, change. Did
Mhm.
that help with your burnout? I mean,
Oh,
did
completely.
setting, yeah, those new boundaries because you're a parent,
Mhm.
did it also, yeah, help you mentally and probably physically, just everything all around? You're probably happier.
Absolutely. I love my job now. I
Oh,
think that
that's
I love it for
awesome.
a few reasons. I know how lucky I am to be self-employed and have a family and be a single mom. So I just know how lucky I am to be able to set my own schedule and spend all this extra time with her. So for that reason, I just have a new appreciation for my job. And then, yeah, just setting those boundaries and I also started outsourcing a lot of the work that I do, like the editing and the culling mainly, and so that
Okay,
freed up a lot of my time too. And so,
nice.
yeah, I love my job now, and because I love my job now, my work has, like, skyrocketed. It's so much better than it was previously because I love it, and I put so much
Yeah.
more passion into it now.
That passion is there.
Mhm,
How did you decide what to outsource? I mean, that's a big topic for entrepreneurs and business owners because
mhm,
you cannot do it all. Like I have to outsource somebody to help with my books and my accounting, you
mhm.
have to. You're
Right.
going to drown if you don't. There's only so many hours in the day. So how did you make that decision to I'm going to outsource this? Is it based on things you didn't like or time?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have pretty bad ADHD, and so for me, culling specifically, culling is when you go through and you get rid of the photos you don't want to keep and you keep the best of
Mm.
the best. So yeah, so for me, I found that culling was really, really hard for me because I would cull like 10 photos and I'd be like, what's going on Facebook?
Ah, got
And
it,
I'd call
yeah.
10 more and I'd be like, oh, I got an email. And so I was just constantly like all over the place. So that was an obvious one to get rid of. And then editing too, it's just so time consuming.
Mhm, mhm.
So I initially outsourced it to a human being, and now with artificial intelligence, is such a tricky thing
Yeah.
in this world. There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, but when it comes to photography, it's game changer,
Mm,
because AI editing, it's again improved my body of work. So I send everything through my AI software. It comes back, and then I go through the wedding, and I still tweak every photo, but it's just little
sure.
tweaks here and there to make it absolutely perfect. Where before I was hand editing every single image, and it was taking me days.
Yeah. So it's
So
really I mean, the advancement of technology has been able to save you a lot of
mhm.
time, but not diminish the quality of the work.
Yes, yes, and that's the thing. I used to be afraid to tell people that I used AI editing because I felt like they were gonna think I was cheating, but really,
Mhm.
I'm doing that everyone a service because the quality has just gone up even more because
Sure.
I'm not exhausted after editing 1,200, 2,000 photos. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Awesome, this didn't take that long. It's absolutely perfect." And I'm thrilled with it.
Do you feel like a lot of photographers or creatives are afraid of AI? Like you said, you were afraid to say, "Hey, I use AI." And I think,
Mhm.
like you said, a lot of people feel like they're cheating. I mean, same with marketing. Like if we say we use ChatGPT, people might think, "Oh gosh, we'll have ChatGPT write all of our social posts. We don't need Keep It Real Social." And so you're
Right.
like, you're afraid to say it, but that's really not how it works.
For sure. I mean, you just said it. You have the expertise behind what to even put into ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
And then how to tweak what comes out of ChatGPT because you can't
Yeah.
just put in a couple words and then get like perfection. Maybe you can,
No, you
but
can't.
you don't even know if it's perfection if you're not the
Yeah.
expert behind the
Absolutely.
ad or whatever it is that you're writing. So yeah, I don't know about photographers. I can't speak for other people. I think that people are kind of embracing it because it's such a game changer. I think
Yeah,
some are more hesitant than others. And if you don't have ADHD like me, like maybe editing isn't a big deal and you enjoy doing it and you can get through it really fast. But for me, it was
sure.
just like it took forever.
You're like,
It
"Is
took
this
so
done?" Yeah,
long. Yeah.
yeah,
And so that was an obvious one. But yeah, it doesn't mean that you can go from not being a photographer to being a photographer, like you said, because
sure.
even just setting up the AI software, you have to have 5,000 edited photos in a Lightroom catalog, which if you're not a photographer, you don't even know what I'm saying right now.
Exactly. I don't. I'm
And you
like,
have to
"What's that?"
Right. You have to upload that into the software, and then the software analyzes all of your previous editing and all your previous
Mm,
settings and then creates a formula for you. So it's not cheating because it's still taking, 5 years, 10 years worth of work and turning it into
sure.
what I want my photos to look like. So,
And how you edit and use the AI software isn't going to be the same as the
mhm,
photographer next door because their
right,
5,000 photos were edited differently than how you
right.
edited over the last 5 years. So it really is using your expertise and your skills and sharing that with the AI to use that
Yeah.
for future editing. So that's amazing.
And
That's
even
that's awesome.
Yeah, and even how you shoot, how you shoot makes a difference in how your photos come out. So someone could use my exact AI settings and it won't work on their photos because maybe they're shooting differently than me. Maybe they're shooting darker or maybe they're shooting in the woods and they're doing the moody look. There's
Mm,
just so many things that
mhm.
go into how your photos turn out.
Wow, that seems like a whole episode just on using AI in photography. Like, there's probably courses on it, so yeah. But so for those
Yeah.
listening, probably maybe they aren't, pros like you. Who have you over the years followed in small business to inspire you? And this doesn't have to be a photographer, but someone that you've looked
Mhm.
up to, maybe it's someone on Instagram, maybe it is another photographer. Who's kind of helped inspire you in business that you follow and look up to?
That's a tricky question, and this might not be a popular response, but it, it, not a lot of people.
Okay.
I suffer from that, like, comparison is the thief of joy. Like I
That's not a
I would
suffering thing. That's not a bad thing.
yeah, so, like, I used to follow tons of accounts, all the wedding blogs, like Style Me Pretty and Green Wedding Shoes, and there's just so many of these, like, big luxury wedding blogs, and I would follow them all, and every time I'd see a post or I'd follow fellow photographers, and every time I'd see a post, I'd feel worse about myself. I
Oh,
was sort
okay.
of like there was something about, like, that success that made me feel like I wasn't successful, which isn't necessarily, like, a healthy place to be, but
Sure.
it's also a normal place to be. I think
I
that
see what you
imposter
mean. Like,
syndrome.
yeah. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. At first I was like, "Oh, it's not a bad thing to have that," but you're saying you try to shy away from that so you don't compare yourself because it's not the
Yeah.
healthiest spot to be. Okay, I get
Mhm.
you. That makes
So
sense.
I
It's
then I
really
went
awesome that you know that about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hesitate to talk about it because I think it's really healthy actually, and I think we all have really immature, irrational thoughts, and we just tamp them down because that's not what an adult does. But you know what?
Yeah.
Following so and so made me feel bad about myself. That's a me thing. That's not about them. But I
Yeah.
had to unfollow them in order to be like, okay, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm talented. I'm successful. I'm fine. Even though they're doing well has nothing to do with me doing well. And I firmly believe in community over competition and rising tide lifts all boats, all of that stuff. I
Mhm.
firmly believe in it. But for me, and maybe like my fragile ego or whatever it is, I had to stay away from following a lot of industry folks.
Got it. Is there anybody outside of the industry that you've kind of looked up to or inspires you or like, she power or, you're just like, oh my gosh, that person has really killed it. And, or you follow someone in terms of they give great advice.
Yeah, I tend to lean more towards people who give advice like in all realms of life. I can't even think of
Mm,
somebody that I'm following right now. But people that just give advice on like keeping your cortisol levels low and like
yeah.
how to deal with stress and how to take
Got
care
it.
of your body. And I find that to be a lot more fulfilling for me than following someone who gives advice about business because I also feel like so many of those accounts it's so nuanced. Like, where we live,
Mhm.
Summer. We live in such a
Yeah.
seasonal, small area that blows up in the summer. And so, a lot of the advice that these other accounts are giving is for people who live in Los Angeles or New York City or Detroit or bigger cities. And so, like,
Yes.
our little strange uh, area, it just doesn't fit the mold for so much of that business advice anyway.
It's so true. So, for anyone listening who's not tuning in from Northern Michigan, Stephanie and I are from Northern Michigan, Emmett County, which is very rural, and we definitely have a seasonal population. So it's completely unique. And I can
Mhm.
relate to what you're saying. A lot of agency, groups that I follow, they talk about doing it this way or that way. And I'm like, I'm not in New York City. I'm not in Denver, Colorado. I can't, run my business that way. I can't charge those rates. I would never have any
Right.
business. So it is really hard because those are the people that have the millions of followers giving those,
Mhm.
that advice, and it doesn't really resonate with where we are and what we do. So
Right.
I can totally relate to that. So
Right.
what values are really important to you when you think about the kind of business you are building and you want to build, even the future of your business?
Mhm. Yeah, I feel pretty clear on what my values are, and they would be inclusivity and making people feel really comfortable and safe.
Mhm.
Safe in the sense that like I'm not going to judge them for whatever their lifestyle choice might be or whatever wherever they are in the world, but also safe in front of the camera because a lot of
Yeah,
people get really, really nervous when you put a camera in their face. It's like
totally.
a very vulnerable thing.
It is. Yeah, like you're gonna capture, something that they don't want you to capture, or they don't like how they look, or their teeth are crooked, or whatever. We're all our own worst critics. And I think you to take
Yes.
pictures and to see the picture, you're like, oh, I don't like that about myself. So
Mhm.
that's really cool that
Mhm.
and I know you do that because, we have a history of working together and you worked with clients. We've worked together. We held a women in business conference a few years back, which seems like an
Yeah.
eternity ago. And it really does seem crazy. That was in 2018, wasn't it? Yeah.
19. It was like just
19.
months before the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but taking those pictures and you really do make people feel safe and bring out the best, in them. And it's one of the reasons my own 17-year-old wants you to capture her senior
Aw.
photos because she absolutely loves, your work. So that's really, and have you always had these values? How did you kind of, because I think values are so important for small business owners, and when they
Mhm.
start out, they get so wrapped up and so busy in taking new business and paying the bills and building this business that they might not have sat down and really thought, "What do I value? What kind of business do I want to
Mhm.
build?" So did you always have this? I mean, I think this was always a part of you, but did you sit down and
Mhm.
create that, or how did this kind of come to be for you?
It's a really great question, and I don't think I did always have these values. I agree with you completely. When you're just starting out, you're just, like, floundering and just
Yeah.
keeping your head above water and just trying to, like, get business and do a good job and figure out what you're doing, and, like, for me, learn how to shoot on manual, you
Yeah.
know? But, yeah, I think it just sort of slowly evolved, and I think it's okay if you're just starting out to not have your values because if you sit down and you're like, "What are my values?" There's a really good chance that they're gonna change over time anyway.
True.
You know, for me, inclusivity is a huge one and making sure that all different kinds of couples feel welcome. And, back in 2008,
Mhm.
I mean, embarrassed to admit it, but that wasn't something that was quite on my radar as much as it is
Sure.
now because, that's a, so it's very, very important to me now, and it grew. It grew over time to see, what mattered to me, and I'd say like working with people over time and seeing their needs and seeing, in the
Mm.
beginning when somebody was awkward, I was like, because a lot of times people who are uncomfortable or awkward, they come across as rude or unfriendly,
Yeah.
and so learning that kind of thing in the beginning, I was like, well, this person's just a jerk,
Yeah.
and now I realized actually they're probably just really uncomfortable.
Really uncomfortable, really nervous, yeah.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's really, I like how you said that your values, maybe the core of who you are has always stayed the same, but like you said, your values grew over time because you matured as a person, your client base grew, you learned, from the people you were working with. You probably heard stories from people you were photographing that were like, oh my gosh, I was told no by this photographer, or this
Mhm.
photographer didn't tell me this. And so you've learned over the years what people and your clients need and want and kind of adapt to that.
Yeah, I agree. And when I say that being inclusive wasn't as on my radar in 2018, I think, or 2008, I think that's more that right there is
Mhm.
is hearing the stories of people being turned away or
Yeah.
feeling not welcome. And that's
Yeah,
the kind of stuff that, like, I've always been inclusive and an
100%.
ally to all kinds of people, but
Yep.
I didn't realize how needed it was to be verbal and vocal about that
Yeah, that you
because
actually have to put that on your website, which is kind of a sad
yes,
thing.
yes,
Like,
I
it's
agree.
really sad that we live in a
Mhm.
society where you actually have to say you're an inclusive person because shouldn't
Right?
everybody be inclusive? But people have
Mhm,
it's not the world we live in, unfortunately. And so you have to put that on your website so
mhm.
that people know that you are an open door for them and you're there to
Yes.
welcome them. And because
Mhm.
not every photographer is, unfortunately.
Right,
So,
right, right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and even
Wow.
just making people feel comfortable and safe, even just having them do like with a couple, if I'm working with a couple, I try really hard to get authentic, kind of candid style photography, but a
Mhm.
lot of times you still have to pose them to get that.
Yeah.
And so that's where even putting a couple in a pose and then saying, okay, now hold hands and walk towards me and look at each other and laugh or whatever it may be, that's enough to put some people over the edge. And they're like, I'm acting like I don't even know. And they get really worried. So that's where I come up with all sorts of things to just make them feel really, really comfortable. And I think a lot of it is that I'm so awkward and goofy on the photo shoots that they're like, we're safe with this person.
Oh my
Like,
gosh, you're so
it's
funny.
not like I'm super cool and like poised and suave on these photo shoots. Like I am such a dork. And I think that really actually helps my clients feel like, okay, I'm safe. We're safe here.
Yeah. Well, you're just genuine. I think that that's the best part about you. I mean, if
Aw,
anybody meets you in person and you're just who you are, regardless of where you're at, whether you're on the computer screen or you're in person having lunch or you're at a conference or at a photo shoot, you're just Stephanie. So,
aw, thank
yeah.
you.
So,
That's
what's
really
your
sweet.
favorite part of this job? I mean, do you have a favorite thing that you absolutely love?
I kind of enjoy all of it. I've always kind of been drawn to maybe being a wedding planner someday or something because I
Mm.
really enjoy having a lot of different tasks in one day. I love the idea of like setting up for an event and then running over to Ace Hardware because you need a hammer and then and that's what I like about my job too, is like I wake up and I check my emails and then I take Birdie to daycare and then I come back and then I'm editing photos and then I'm sending some
Mhm.
more emails and then I'm doing some booking. And I just really enjoy kind of the ups and downs and the changes throughout the day. And I think that's one reason going back to outsourcing, why getting rid of calling and editing was so helpful was because that took up so much time. I was
Mm.
literally just sitting on my computer editing for hours, overthinking
Yeah,
things,
the
thinking about things I
monotony.
said to someone that like was offensive and like just
Yeah.
like, oh, is that person mad at me? And like just home by myself thinking in my head.
Yeah,
And so getting rid of editing and culling, I still edit obviously, but getting rid of
sure.
the bulk of editing and culling opened up my day to be able to work on blog posting and Instagram posts. And like people don't talk about this. Any small business, you wear so many hats.
So many.
So many hats.
Yep.
Like accountant, photographer, editor, CRM, like client relations management,
Yep.
like marketing. You know what it is. I mean, you have
Yeah.
just as many hats, but different hats. Like you're just
Yep.
dealing with so much you have to do.
There's a lot of juggling,
Mhm.
absolutely. And I think that you kind of said it so well that what you like about your job and what you're doing is that you're doing a lot of different things. You're staying busy. You're not bored at at what you're doing every day, which is kind of a blessing. You're not at a desk from 9 to 5.
Mhm.
You're busy and you get to set your own schedule,
Mm. Yeah,
which
I mean, I love it.
which is a blessing. So, well, let's take
Mhm.
a quick ad break and then I want to come back and talk to you about how you are balancing being a mom and a businesswoman. So, we're going to cut for a quick break and we'll be right back with Stephanie. Friends, are you spinning your wheels on what to post on social media? Are you frustrated that people search for your business? They're looking for your products and services, but they can't find you? Facebook and Instagram go down and you can't email your customers because you don't have an email list, let alone know how to grow one or create these beautiful monthly newsletters? Look, you're great great at running your business, and Keep It Real Social is excellent at marketing. So let them do what they excel at for you. Let them give you those marketing hours back so you can work on your business and not in your business. Visit keepitrealsocial.com and stop feeling frustrated because they can help. All right, welcome back to Small Biz Big Wins. We're here with Stephanie Baker, an award-winning luxury photographer, and I want to ask Stephanie how she is balancing being a mom and a businesswoman. How are you juggling it all? And what advice do you have for other parents listening who have kids and they're running a business? How do you do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. It's a roller coaster for sure. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but I'm a single mother by choice, which means that I used a doctor to help me get pregnant with my daughter, and she does not have. We do not have another partner or another a father in the picture, which I'm really proud of. It was a big decision to make to move forward with that, and it's been like absolutely the most incredible thing ever. And
Mhm.
juggling has been it's been a lot.
Yeah.
I would say for me, again, I keep going back to the whole outsourcing thing. That has been so, so incredibly helpful because it's given me so much time back in my day to do other things like clean the house and make dinner and like all these things that I didn't have to worry about before.
Yeah. No, yeah, now you're making sure she's in bed and and then not to mention if she gets sick or something happens,
Oh my
juggling
gosh,
it
yeah.
all,
Yeah.
you know?
It's just like honestly been the most incredible experience from the beginning. People are so understanding if she is sick and I say, "Hey, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm sorry, my kid's sick." Like people are just so accommodating. It's like going back to talking about boundaries too. Ask for what you need. People want to help you. They want to give you what you need. If you ask for it in the right way, people want to help you, you know?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
been it's been incredible, to just watch people be so kind and understanding. Um, and yeah, juggling all of that. So I know I'm kind of all over the place. So the outsourcing has been really helpful. And then I also have a really great CRM software, client relations, that called Honeybook. And so between Honeybook and QuickBooks, I don't have to worry about really booking or accounting at all. So those are
Yeah.
just things that it's just so streamlined. So I feel like I kind of, because I had been in the industry for so long before having Birdie, I feel like I'm really set up to kind of be on autopilot now. And I can give my clients incredible service. But then I put most of my energy into clients, like giving them the help they
Mhm.
need, holding their hand through the process and editing and taking care of Birdie, and everything else is just like,
Yeah.
it's just like it's on autopilot. It's amazing.
That's awesome. So, I love how you said in regards to boundaries, ask for what you need. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's something a lot of women struggle with in general,
Yeah.
asking their family for what they need,
Mm-hmm.
asking their partner for what they need, asking their clients. Like, so I love
Mm-hmm.
how you said that because I think it's something that we need to all learn to do more of is to actually communicate our needs and not have that philosophy that we can do it all because we
Mm-hmm.
can't. And you mentioned that you were suffering from burnout, and you didn't
Mm-hmm.
like your job for a long time. And I have had numerous guests on so far, and they have talked about the burnout. And it is a real thing. And nobody wants, whether you're working a 9 to 5 job or you have your own business, to feel like you don't love what you're doing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it was people would be like, "Oh my god, I bet you love your job." Like I'd be on photo shoots, and I'm like, "Uh huh, hmm
Yeah.
I'm so happy."
Yeah, I'm really stressed out and, yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm like, "I love my job." Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
you
yeah, I
had to
think
make
asking.
some you had to course correct and make some
Mhm.
changes so that you could love it. You also talked about Honeybook, which is interesting because Honeybook really was designed for creatives like yourself, graphic designers, doing freelance photographers, but it is something actually Keep It Real Social uses too. We've adapted for ours.
Oh,
We've used it since I have used it since 2019 and
it's amazing.
it's really yeah, so I'll definitely put the link in the show notes for any small business owner looking for a CRM software to, manage the leads coming in, but
Mhm,
you can manage your contracts, your proposals, take payments. It's really
mhm,
a great software, and it's come a long ways over
mhm.
the course
Yeah.
of the last 5 years too. So, but developing a process and a procedure has helped you because before, if you did, if you never had that, that's a lot of things to
Mhm.
juggle.
Mhm.
Manually sending out the contract,
Mm.
manually handling, like all of this kind of goes into Honeybook and you can just do
Mhm.
it all in the software. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's incredible. I used a different software before I switched to HoneyBook, and it wasn't as good, and the biggest reason why I switched to HoneyBook is because of the integration with QuickBooks, because I don't
Mhm.
have to enter any sales. Like, all
Yep.
my sales go through, like, I do the contract, I send it out, they pay their invoice, all of that just goes right to QuickBooks. So I spend, like, maybe 3 to 4 hours per year on accounting, and that's
Wow.
including, like, everything when I put everything together for my tax, for, like, tax season, putting my profit and loss together, because I also have a
Nice.
business credit card. I automate all of that to go into QuickBooks, and then it just auto categorizes, and I just have to like double check all my transactions for the year. It's just incredible.
Yeah. No, it's in that's great to know. We don't take a lot of payments through Honeybook, so, we don't use it
Hmm.
that way, but again,
Expensive.
it can be adapted, for whatever
Hmm.
it is that you need. It's also great because as leads come in, you can have it integrate with your email software. So you can collect all
Hmm.
those leads into Mailchimp and then send out automatic
Hmm.
emails. So there's all, things you can do to really use this software Honeybook to automate
Yeah.
your business, whether you're
Yeah.
creative or a marketing agency. So it really, whatever software any small business owner chooses, there's going to have to be some type of an adaption. You're going to have to
Hmm.
adapt it somehow for your business. It's not going to be
Hmm.
perfect.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
yeah.
hard to decide when to spend that money too. I feel like every element of my business is like a subscription. Editing is a subscription with Adobe. HoneyBook is a
Yep.
subscription. QuickBooks is a subscription.
Yep.
Flowdesk is a subscription. Like, everything costs money, and it's
Yes,
crazy how much it adds up. But that's part of the cost of running a business, and you can choose to accept or reject some of these things, but they really do help you.
they do
And
in the automation process. And it sounds like by you delegating and automating things, it is freed up your time to do more of what you love and
mhm.
spend time with Birdie, which is exactly what any small business owner wants.
Totally. And so I did want to go back to that for a second, because I missed a key component to kind of how you juggle a small business with a small child. And one of those things
Mm.
is, like, boundaries within your home. Like, I tried to work when Birdie was home in the beginning, and
Ah.
and that was so hard for me, because then she'd be like, "Mom, come play with me. Mom," I mean, at that point she was a newborn, but still, like, no matter what her age was, something would come up and I would be so mad. I'd be like, "But I'm working. I have to complete this task." So for me,
Mhm.
a huge boundary was, I cannot work on the days that I'm off with Birdie. And so we just changed our schedule. So I work Monday through Thursday, and then Friday through Sunday I have off with her, and it's incredible. It's like the best long weekend every weekend. We have so much fun together, and I vow to, literally, I don't even open my computer. Now it's Friday and I'm working today.
Yeah.
But this
There's
is an
always
exception.
exceptions.
Yes, this is an exception, and she's actually at her favorite place in the world. There's this new Waldorf school down the street from our house, and she loves
Aw.
it. So she woke up and I was like, "We're going to Heather's," and she jumped out of bed and got dressed, and it was just, it's so sweet.
Aw.
She
That's
loves
so
it. So that
cute.
makes it easy. But holding those boundaries for myself, even like a work phone call, anything, I
Mhm.
struggle a lot with, like, maybe having some patience sometimes, and
Yeah.
staying calm. And so that's one of the ways I am the best mom I can be, if I'm very firm with myself about not working when I
Mhm.
am on birdie duty, which is always.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because um Kaylin Sheik was on the show a couple weeks ago and and she was talking about parenting and taking time for herself and I said to her how if I could go back 10 years I would change things and hearing you say that you set those boundaries if I could go back 10 years to when my 17-year-old Josie was little I wish I would have had set those boundaries,
Mm.
and I could have had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which kinda makes me sad to think about, like, I didn't have
Aw.
those boundaries. I was always juggling, working, trying to be a parent, and so I love to hear younger moms like yourself say, I'm doing that, because I think in 10 years you're going to appreciate that so much
Mhm.
and not have that regret that I have, that I didn't set those boundaries and I wasn't waiting. I mean, I can think back to, like, it was nap time and I would try to squeeze in an hour or something, but it would always creep over to nap time.
Mhm.
And then she'd wake up and I was like, like, I
Right.
have
She
so
or
much
she
to
wakes up
do.
early and you're just, like, filled with rage. No one
What?
talks about
And that's
mom rage.
not, yeah, that is not how you want to be when your
No.
baby, your little one
Mhm.
wakes up from a nap. You want to be like, "Yay, let's play." And so
Yes.
I feel bad. I wish I would have done what you were doing. So that is
Mhm.
tremendous advice for anyone listening, is that you have to have boundaries with your clients. You have to ask for what you need, but
Mhm.
you also have to create those boundaries within your home, like you're saying, so that you can really do what's most important and be that
Right.
parent.
Well, and you called me a younger mom, which is sweet because I'm not.
Oh, well, you're younger than me,
I'm
so to
well,
me,
right, but
you're a
I'm
younger mom.
41. I'm 41. I have a 3-year-old, and so I do kind of feel though like going later in life and having her. So
Mm,
I was 30. I turned 38 like the month after I had her. Was incredible. Talking about mentors and talking about people that I look up to and follow on Instagram, I would say like all of the mothers that went before me have been a huge impact, have had a huge impact on
yeah.
how I parent because, they offer so much great advice. And one of the things you hear constantly is, oh, it goes so fast. It goes so fast. And, I got to a point where I was like, yeah, I know. I know. What do you
Yeah.
want me to do?
Yep.
But
Yep.
it's helpful to hear that from people that have gone before me because I
Yeah.
prioritize things that I don't think I would have prioritized 10 years ago.
100%. And I look back and I had started my blog in 2008. She was born in 2007. So i- the advice that's out there now on social for parents didn't
Mhm.
exist the same for me back
Mm-mm.
then either,
Mhm.
and there there weren't those, great Instagram, moms to follow that are inspiring you. It didn't
Mhm.
exist. So,
Yeah.
it's great to hear that is inspirational for you and you learn from that. And it's true. Like, it is fleeting. Being a parent is fleeting.
Mhm.
And I wish I could turn back the clock. I can't. So it's great to give advice like this and have other parents listening, and hopefully they can heed the advice that you're giving and learn from my mistakes too.
Yeah.
So, but we can't beat
Yeah.
ourselves up, right?
We
Like,
can. Well, and you know what? No matter how much time you spent with your kids, you're always going to wish you could turn back the clock.
you are, that is true. Yeah,
Even if
that
you
is
did
very
what
true.
I'm doing, which I'm so
Yeah.
fortunate to have. I agree with you. I feel like I'm so glad that I figured this out, and that I'll still look back with regret and think
Oh, for sure.
I should have scrolled less on my phone that day, or I should have, there's just
Yep.
so much. But something else I wanted to say that you just touched on was the advice out there. And I think that as much as like I feel like we're all a little terrified with our society right now, things are
Mhm.
weird. But there is this new sort of energy about being a professional in the world, and that is like have
Yeah.
boundaries, take care of yourself, don't get burned out. And I think that my clients understand that. I'm sure a lot of your clients
Yeah.
understand that, and all the advice out there teaches us that too. So it's
Yeah.
like we are in a special time in the sense that we can ask for what we need, because the alternative is like going insane
Yeah. Yeah,
or
well,
quitting your job
the alternative is,
or
yeah, quitting your job or burnout or,
Mhm.
and that's the last thing that you want to have happen. I mean,
Mhm.
anyone listening that's building a small business, you're building it because you have certain things you want. Maybe you want that freedom of schedule. Maybe you want, you're designing your life.
Mhm.
And to do that, you have to have those boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
And
really
finally,
the
we're
only
living
way.
in a time where I didn't mean to talk over you. I'm sorry,
No,
but
go
we're
ahead.
living in a time finally where that's acceptable. Like my dad is from that previous generation, and he was one of the people I wanted to mention earlier that I look up to, and that he has shaped me in so many ways, but he still doesn't understand when I'm like, "Oh, I can't work on Wednesday." He's like, "What? You take every job that comes your way." And I'm like, "Well, I can't because I need a day off. I need to
Yeah.
spend time with my child." And he's like, "You need to work all the time." And he
Yep.
comes from that generation. First of all, he's a man. So, he comes from those gender roles,
Yep.
gender norms too of men work. And but
Yep.
he expects me to just constantly take every job that comes my way and never say no to anyone, no matter what the red flags are, no matter how
Yeah.
burned out I am, no matter how
Yep.
sick I am, if I'm physically sick or mentally sick or whatever
Yep.
it is, like you work all the time. And I
Yeah.
feel really fortunate to finally be in an era where our well-being is just as important as the success of our businesses.
Yeah. Well, and I think from all the interviews I've done, the books I've read, the podcasts I listen to, I definitely feel as though the more we value our well-being and mental and physical well-being, actually the more successful we are.
Mm. Mhm. I think that is so true, because the more you take care of yourself, the more you can do too.
The more
You know,
you
what do they
can do.
say? Give a busy person, if you need something done, give it to a busy person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's hard to learn how to say no. But
Oh, yeah.
no is a complete sentence. So
Well, and it's terrifying saying no if you're a small business owner and you're like, I don't
mm,
know when the next lead is coming my way. It could be in 2
100%.
hours or it could be in 2 weeks.
Exactly. Yeah. So how do you balance that unpredictability as
Mm.
a small business owner, especially in a rural area? I mean,
Mhm.
COVID happened and the weddings were completely different for you then, right? Like you had to
Yeah.
pivot and shift. And so what advice do you have for small business owners who don't have that regular cadence of, what to expect on a month to month basis?
I'd love to hear your answer to this too. It's it's
You go
not
first.
some yeah, yeah, it's not something that comes naturally or easily. I still have the inclination to wanna say yes to every job, and I still do say yes to a lot of jobs for 2
Yeah.
reasons. A paycheck is a paycheck, and this is unpopular. In the photography industry, you'll hear from a lot of photographers who say, "Only take jobs that match the portfolio or the direction you wanna go or the right clientele,"
Mhm.
and they tell you to be really selective, and yeah, maybe if you're in Chicago or New York City or LA, you can afford to do that
Mhm.
because there's an abundance of clients. But here, it's really hard to take a perfectly
Mhm.
good lead and be like, well, they're a little too traditional for me, so I'm going
Yeah.
to go ahead and pass.
Yep.
So I do take more jobs than I would like. You know, some of the jobs I take are not perfect for me, but it's a
Mhm.
paycheck. And
Mhm.
I've also found that, yes, like red flags exist. And I got one recently, a big red flag. And but the other thing is that it's really hard to sift through those red flags because some red flags turn out to be really incredible clients.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so the answer to your question is, it takes a lot of time and experience to figure out when you wanna say no to something. And I'm still really, really picky about saying no, not the opposite of where a lot of people say I should be, but I'm really I say yes to most people because I find that every job has a learning experience in it, a beautiful life lesson in it, like maybe a client that I
Yeah.
thought was a real jerk and they turned out to be lovely. You
Yeah,
know,
you
some
yeah.
people don't put their best self forward in email, and then in person, they're really great, you know? So,
Mhm.
I I don't say no as much as I should, and I don't regret that.
Yeah. There's not a perfect formula for anyone listening. There's, what works for Stephanie, what works for Summer, what works for guests, blah, 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 and guest blah, blah, blah. They're all going to be different for what
Mhm,
works for everybody.
for sure.
Um, I think it is hard to have that predictability of income if you're not, in a retainer based business or have that model. I definitely think maturity, age, helps you have more boundaries and say no to things as well. And life
Mhm,
lessons. You've learned that, okay, usually this red flag means this. And
mhm,
so you can use your past experience to help guide you. So, yeah, I just think that comes with time and practice and maturity. And the longer you've had a business, the longevity, 16 years is a long time that you've had your business. You are more set to have that capability of saying, I'm going to say no on Saturday because I'm going to be with Birdie versus someone who's just starting out. So, that's a huge difference. Speaking of starting out, for somebody listening here who wants to start a photography business, right? You offer a coaching program, and I don't want to not mention that you
oh,
mentor other photographers who want to build their business. And so if I'm a new photographer and I want to get started and do something as amazing like you have, how do I get in touch with you? How do I sign up for this coaching program? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. Well, first, if it's okay, I want to go back to something you said just a minute
Yes.
ago. And it's just sort of all of that. But I want to say, like, if you are newer, don't beat yourself up if you do take every job that comes your way,
No, don't.
because it's a paycheck.
It's a paycheck.
And also, it's a learning experience. So even if, like, you get to this wedding and it has terrible decor and you were really hoping for a portfolio builder, that's okay. It's still
Mhm.
an experience and you're learning. So, like, the earlier you are on in your career, I feel like say yes to everything, unless it's an
Yeah,
obvious red flag or it's like,
totally.
the girlfriend of your ex-boyfriend who wants you to shoot their wedding. Like, there are reasons to say no.
Yeah, totally.
But in general, I think that is, like you said, something that comes with experience and age and longevity in your industry is
Mhm.
the luxury of saying no and the knowledge of when it's appropriate to say no.
Yeah.
But don't beat
Yeah.
yourself up if you're saying yes to every single job still. I
No.
did that until probably 3 years ago, like,
Sure, and you might
and
have
even
seasons in your business where you have to do that,
mhm,
and
yeah,
that's okay. There are different seasons in every business, and you might find yourself back in that boat even after 16 or 20 years where you're starting to have to say yes because things happen, and I don't we beat ourselves up, but we shouldn't,
yes.
so
I agree with that, and I think that's really important what you just said, which is, like, just because I've been in this industry for 16 years, and I don't know how long you've been doing this for quite a while too, doesn't mean that we aren't gonna have ebbs and flows and we aren't gonna have,
Mhm.
like, bad years where we have to say yes to, whatever kind of wedding is you don't wanna say yes to, or whatever kind
Yep.
of portrait session or whatever, like, we are all gonna get humbled again in our careers.
Yeah, we all will get humbled again. Absolutely, I love that. So, perfect.
So remind me of your question. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
so for anyone who's just starting in their photography business, or they've been in business for a while, but they need to, amp things up, they need to make a change.
Mm,
You
mhm.
offer a coaching program.
I
So,
do.
yeah, and we'll put the link to that in the show notes for anybody who is looking for your business savvy and to, have your guidance and help. But is there some place that they can go, or tell us a little bit more? What does this coaching mentor program include?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I can offer any level of help that people need, but the thing that I've been working on lately is called Brighter Business Basics. And it's really great for someone who is either just getting started or has been in it doesn't really matter how long they've been in the industry. Do they want to make sure they're doing everything properly? And properly is a broad term. This is
Mhm.
how I do it, and it works really well for me. So I go over, oh my gosh, I talk about so much stuff. I talk a lot about setting boundaries. I talk about all my client onboarding, and I give email templates about, like, how I welcome a client, how I book a
Nice.
client, how I hold their hand through the whole process. I talk about accounting. I talk about all the behind the scenes business basics stuff. I talk about website design and
Nice.
what you should and shouldn't have on your website. A little bit about SEO. I'm not an SEO expert, but I kind of talk
Mhm.
more about the importance of using SEO on your website and blogs
Yep.
more than, like, how to do it.
Yep.
Just so much. So it's really good for someone who's been in the industry for maybe 0 to 5 years. But even
Sure.
if you've been in for 15 years, maybe you've been a hobbyist for a long part of that time or whatever. There's just so much to learn about the
Yeah.
business side of things. There's so much advice out there for how to shoot properly or what equipment to get or posing prompts or all of that, like, not the behind the scenes stuff, but nobody talks about the
Absolutely.
business side of photography, which is really helpful and really important to stay in your career and not get burned out.
Mhm. No, that's great. So we'll put the link to that coaching
Yeah.
program in the show notes. But it's definitely I've seen you grow your business over the years, and I'm definitely going to say to anybody who is wanting to hone their craft of being a photographer beyond just the equipment,
Mhm.
and really build that business side, and take their business to the next level. Definitely, Stephanie's the person to connect with. So
Thank you.
one last question I ask all my guests. What is a big win that you have had in business that you can share with other business owners, whether they're a photographer or creative or whatever their business is, that might
Mhm.
inspire them? It could be landing a big client. It could be setting that boundary and it being life-changing, an award, anything. What is a big
Yeah.
win?
I would say my big win of late is getting more confidence. I started about 3 years ago hiring someone to do a website audit and portfolio curation.
Mhm.
And in that portfolio curation, they gave me a lot of feedback on my photography. And I took all that feedback and I applied it. And I am like so proud of where I am with the work I deliver, the galleries I deliver to my wedding clients and my family and senior portrait clients and commercial clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my win. Is I feel like I'm in a place for the first time in my career where I am like 100% confident in, not the first time, I've been here for about a year, but I am so confident in where I am, who I am, what I'm offering, the work I'm giving. And it feels so good to be
Aw.
that confident, like to hop on a call with a client. And if they choose not to hire me, I know it's not because of me. It's just they maybe liked someone else better, or
Yeah,
maybe the price point was where they wanted to be with that other person.
sure.
And it feels really good to have that level of confidence because it shines through with my clients too. And then they have more
Mhm.
confidence. It's just a beautiful place to be. And I'm really enjoying it.
That's not even a big win. That's a huge win. And I think that's what all small business owners should aspire to be, is to have that confidence level where you can sit across from the table with somebody and they can say no and you're like, "Okay, like
Yeah.
you're not a good fit. That's fine." And it years ago, I'm sure you felt when someone said no, you took it personally. You're like, "Oh
Yeah.
my God." Like, or you felt like, "Oh my God, I'll lower my price." Or you wanted so badly because hearing that no was almost like an insult. And
Mm-hmm.
to have that confidence to be like, "All right, like I know I'm great. We're just not a good fit. No
Yeah.
problem." That is something that, it takes time to get to that. I mean, but to aspire to that is huge. So, well, congratulations on being in that
Thanks.
space right now.
Thank you.
That's a
It's a
journey.
nice
That's a
place to
journey.
be. But like I said earlier, I'm sure I'll be humbled again very soon.
Oh, yes,
We
it could
all
be
go through
tomorrow
these
for
ups
all we
and
know.
downs. But those humbling moments are like such building blocks to get you to the next big creative burst, the next big confidence burst. Like
Mhm.
those humbling moments are everything in a way.
Yeah,
Failures
take
are just
them.
as important as the wins.
Yeah, they definitely are. I actually was listening to a TED talk about that recently. So yeah, it's a huge thing. But well, thank you so much for your time, Stephanie. And you'll have to thank Birdie for us that she went to school today instead of staying home with mommy. But we really appreciate it. And so anyone that is tuning in, please make sure that you visit the show notes. I will have information on how to connect with Stephanie, how to hire Stephanie, how to take her coaching class, which you can take virtual from anywhere, which is wonderful. You don't have to be in Northern Michigan to connect with Stephanie if you are wanting to join her mentor and coaching program. And make sure you follow her on social media for inspiration. I love seeing what pops up in her feed. And then always thinking, gosh, I wish my wedding pictures looked like that. But
You just need to renew your vows and
oh my
have me
gosh.
shoot it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah. I don't know if I want to do that. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean
I
it
guess
is.
we
You're
could do
right.
it see, I'd want to go big, Stephanie. That's the
Right.
problem. Like we
Right.
could renew our vows. I'd happily do that on a beach privately with him any day of the year. But I don't know if I would want to have a big party. So
Well, you do it for your 50th.
maybe,
Do it like a
maybe.
joint 50th and wedding party and
Yeah.
get a
That is pretty common,
band.
isn't that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And
I
then
know ours
also do
was
it
a
for Keep It Real
really
Social, and then you can write it off.
yeah, that's a great idea. Um, ours was a big party, so we'd want to have another big one. So that's the problem. Like, oh my gosh, it'd be so much money knowing what we spent on our wedding. But
Yeah,
that's a whole nother conversation. So
totally.
yeah, but and if you're tuning in, please make sure that you follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and make sure you leave us a comment. It means so much to us. And if you know somebody who is a great fit for Small Biz Big Wins, make sure that you fill out the form, which is also in the show notes. And even if it's yourself, we'd love to hear from you if you'd like to be a guest on Small Biz Big Wins. And until next time, have a great week.